Okay, let's get started. I'm so excited to finally share the birth story. For those of you who are new here, my name is Lucienne and I live in this van with my family. Ben, my partner, and our son Cody, who is 4.5 years old, and our daughter Mika Swan, who is now almost 7 months old. We've been living in a van for over 2 years now. She was actually conceived in this van, and I had the pregnancy in this van, and I also gave birth in this van, a proper little van life baby. So let's start at the beginning, which is conception. Actually, even before conception, because Mika came to me as a spirit baby about 3 months before I conceived her, and she was this, you know, in my dreams, in my visions, she was this cutesy, cheeky, fun, smiley little curly redhead girl, even though I don't think she has got curly or red hair. Now let me get into conception. It was Camp Quirky. Yes, Camp Quirky 2019. I actually have a video up on here about Camp Quirky as well. So she was conceived there. I was very conscious of it. And then about 2 weeks later, I did the test. And yes, I had a wild pregnancy, but I still did the test. That was probably the only thing that I did that wasn't, you know, fully trusting my body. I knew, but I just wanted to see it pink on white. In my last video, I shared everything about my wild pregnancy, what it is, how it went, the fears I felt, and how I worked through them. And so if you haven't seen that and you're interested, go and watch my last video on the wild pregnancy. It all started Wednesday the 29th of January, the evening, and I decided to have a bath. And no, we do not have a bath in our van, but we parked right outside Ben's parents' house, and Ben's parents have a bathtub. Before I had a bath, I lost my mucus plug, and so that was that. I had a very quick bath. It wasn't very relaxing. I was super excited. I was so looking forward to giving birth, and even Cody was so excited he couldn't sleep until past midnight that evening. He was just asking me a ton of questions and just chatting forever about anything and everything. So yeah, I went to bed and had a couple more surges throughout the night, but no baby. So that was a bit of a surprise to me, because with Cody I had, you know, I lost my mucus plug, and the first bit that I could feel, the first sensation that I could feel in my body meant that I was in labor, in pretty much active labor almost immediately. I had 2 days of mild surges, very infrequent surges. I could breathe through them and talk through them. I remember even being in Ben's parents' house and talking to them. I think it was then the actual day of me giving birth, and I was still able to talk with them. I was kind of like on their kitchen counter a bit like this. Afterwards they said, oh yeah, we thought it was a little bit weird, but we had no idea you were in labor. And I didn't want them to know. I didn't want anyone to be worried or, you know, panicking. So I kept it to myself and obviously Ben and Cody. So that second night we went off to a beautiful place in the middle of nowhere. There was nobody there. It was an actual storm. We went off in a storm. I kind of expected her to be there then that night, the next morning, and again she wasn't. She wasn't there. And again I woke up being surprised, and that kind of got me into this loop of thinking, what if I'm gonna be in labor forever? What if this is gonna go on for days and days and days? That thought kind of sounded a bit exhausting, despite the surges being quite mild, but they were surges nonetheless. So we went back to Ben's parents' house, parked right outside of it, and then I decided to just stay there. I remember writing into my diary at about 2:30 that the surges, the contractions, were a little bit more intense and more frequent. And then again at 7 p.m. I remember writing that, okay, the surges are now rather close together. I am struggling to talk through them or do anything else other than just, you know, being with them and breathing through them. And by then I was starting to just kind of hang over the gymnastic ball that I had, one of those big gymnastic balls. It was really comfy. I was just kind of leaning over it, putting my weight on it, and yeah, that was really nice. So I just hung out there for about 3 hours. I was breathing through the now more and more intense surges, listening to my beautiful music that I had downloaded. I had downloaded a few songs that really helped me to get into this trance and some kind of dream world that were very relaxing. The affirmations again are by the Freebirth Society, recorded by Yolanda Clark. Beautiful affirmations. They're actually part of the course, but they have made them, at least at this point of me recording this video, you can download them for free on their website if you sign up for their newsletter. And I can only highly recommend them. They are beautiful. I've listened to quite a few sets of affirmations by different women recording them, different programs, and these ones were by far my favorite. And as I say, you can download them for free on the website. I'm going to link it down below. It was January, so it was really dark at that point. I turned off the lights. Ben and Cody were in the front of the van and had one light on. That is also basically the only thing that I would do differently, was to have it completely dark if it's nighttime. I think if it was daytime, I wouldn't mind natural light coming in. But at night, when it's naturally dark outside, I remember that that bit of light was a little bit distracting. That, again, was the only thing though. I remember looking at the clock on my phone and it said something around 10 p.m. I don't remember exactly, but it was shortly before, shortly after 10 p.m. and I felt so disappointed and deflated. I hadn't looked at the clock the whole time, but when I did, so don't do it, when I did, I was just blah. I thought, whoa, it's only been about 3 hours since I went into active labor. I'm not sure I can do this. I am exhausted. I mean, it was hard work this time, it was only 3 hours and I expected around 5, 6, maybe 7 hours active labor, and I'm not sure I have the strength to keep going. But me thinking that made me realize, like, I kind of became a bit more conscious. I was, in the room, I was back in, out of trance, and I knew I had taught this before, I had read it a million times before, I had heard it on the podcast a million times. I knew that usually that means transition. That usually means that your baby is almost there. And so it was. Cody was actually talking at the beginning of me going into active labor, which absolutely didn't faze me, it didn't annoy me at all. But I know Ben told him to be quiet so I can just be in trance and all of that. And at the end, I got a little bit louder. I was moaning, I was roaring towards the end. I remember Cody coming to me. He was like, "Mommy, shh, you have to be quiet." It was the cutest thing ever. And then I thought, actually, no, come on, you can do this. And the affirmations were on right in that moment. A couple of them really helped me through that bit. And I thought, no, come on, let's just keep going. But I also remember thinking, you really have to listen to your body now. I really concentrated on my body and tried to listen into what I needed to do. And my intuition said, I need to just accept that it would be painful. Now, all I had learned with hypnobirthing, the course that I taught, and from, Cody's birth, where, as I said in my last video, I didn't feel pain. I was absolutely fine. I had a lot of sensations, but I didn't feel any pain. And so it kind of went against my conscious thinking that I should accept pain. But in my body, I just knew, like hanging out on my ball for 3 hours was amazing. It got me where I was in as much comfort as I could possibly have. but it wouldn't get me any further. Some things get you so far, but then you have to shift things for you to get to where you want to be. And in that case, I knew I had to change position. I had to accept that, yes, there would be pain. And I also intuitively knew that I would be able to give birth then and there. So my body told me to get a bit more upright and squat. And that's what I did. I thought, all right, I'm just going to have to do it. I have to go through the pain. Whether I want to or not, but that's the only way I'm going to give birth to this baby now. So I got upright. I was like holding on to this ball still, but I was upright, squatting, and then I just felt the urge to reach down there, and I could feel the head. I could feel her little head. I could feel her hair. There was no control, there was no me consciously pushing. It was just my body bearing down. I was pushing her out, and I could feel her little head coming out. I reached down, I was holding it, and I said to Ben, the head's out, come here. And he came over. Obviously we're in the van, so it wasn't a very long way for him to come over to the bed, and he caught her. I could feel her little body twisting, turning around, and he caught her. And she was actually not even out fully when she started screaming. So yeah, that was one of the things actually that I was worried about, that she wouldn't breathe for a while after I gave birth to her. And well, that wasn't an issue because she came out screaming. I have no idea how long I pushed for, but it must have only been a few minutes because she was born at 10:15. Ben looked at the clock. I actually hung up a sign, that big piece of paper with big words on saying, look at the clock after me giving birth, take the time or something like that. And then number 2 was remind me of birthing my placenta. So she was born, she was out, Ben started to, I don't actually remember exactly. I remember just sitting back with her, just looking at her. I think Ben was back with Cody, and I remember having a look and saying, guys, she's really a girl. I knew deep down that she was, just as much as I knew with Cody that he was a boy. We had told everyone that we think she's a girl, or that we're convinced she's a girl. Not that I would have been disappointed had it been a boy, not at all. But I would have been so surprised had she been a boy. So surprised. I was convinced she was a girl, and she was, and I told them. And we burnt the cord probably about 2 hours or so after the birth. It's a very beautiful ceremonial process. I bought these beeswax candles, and you want them to be pure, 100% pure beeswax. Organic, ideally, obviously, and you want them to be the long, thin candles rather than short and thick, because it'll just all the wax will just drip everywhere, and it's just going to be a bit messy. Beeswax, obviously, it's non-toxic, quite the opposite. It can shift the energy in the cord. It can, bring positive energy towards the baby. It was also because the burning itself cauterizes the cord, and so you don't need a plastic clip. You don't even need one of those crocheted umbilical cord bands. I can't remember what they're called. What I did do was to leave the cord kind of long-ish on Mika's belly, and then I kind of tied a knot into it just in case. I just wanted to make sure, rather than it flying around, and yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was definitely no way it could, bleed out. So I put a knot in it, and obviously, as I say, it was cauterized at the end anyway. I had wrapped some cardboard in lots of layers of aluminium foil, 2 or 3 layers, as a shield between the flame and Mika, the baby. And then we had the bowl where the placenta was in. You can also buy a gorgeous wooden box for, the cord to be over, and then the candles would go under the cord and would just lean on the box, and that's beautiful. I didn't have that. I didn't feel like I needed it. We have a tiny van, so you know, not like we have lots of space to store stuff. But if you're interested, I can see if I find a link to a beautiful box, and then I'll link it down below as well if you would like that for your own birth. Then we went to bed a little bit later, so about 2 a.m. or so, maybe even 3. It was very late for Cody. Cody was terrified every time she cried. He was probably just not expecting that at all. Like, yeah. I felt very emotional that night. I felt almost guilty towards Cody for having brought in another baby into his life, and now him suffering. I was very emotional. You know, from super high to then Cody being terrified and crying and curling himself up in a little corner. And, you know, Ben cuddled him and tried to calm him down, but he was just crying himself to sleep. And, you know, Mika wasn't screaming or crying the whole night, but every time she did cry, Cody got super upset. And so did I. And so the next morning when she was crying again and Cody was super scared, I said to him, because he's a big dinosaur fan, and he was at the time as well, I said, "She sounds like a brachiosaurus." And he said, "Oh, yes, like a baby brachiosaurus." She just sounded like a little dinosaur, and that really helped him. And ever since, he has been absolutely and madly in love with his tiny little sister, who isn't that tiny anymore. And yeah, they're best friends. They love each other so much, and that really helped to find something that got him out of his fear into some sort of excitement about his little sister. Alright, now her name story. I had a feeling about her personality, and Mika just didn't seem to do it justice, just as a standalone. So I was looking for the second name. I was convinced it would come to me in a vision, in a dream, or somehow like it had come to so many other women that I'd heard of, especially on the podcast, and it just didn't. It just didn't. I had given birth to her, and this second or middle name just hadn't come to me. That really, truly felt right from the get-go, and just, you know, sparked something in me. It didn't happen. And I had a few ideas, but they just didn't feel right. So the next day, I called my parents, and towards the end of the call, my dad pretty much just, like, in a side sentence, asked what the village was called again that she was born in now, where Ben's parents live. And I said what it was called, and then Ben was next to me, and I said to Ben, "What does that actually mean?" Because it's like an old, I believe, an old English word. He said it means Swan Lake. And I remember looking at him and thinking, this is it. What? Swan Lake? Are you serious? How did I not know? How did I never ask that question before? I clearly hadn't, because I didn't know. And she was born there, and it just felt perfect. I knew that this would be it. I didn't actually say anything on the call. I just remember being so excited and in awe of what just happened, and that this name just came to me. It actually did, after all, and not during the pregnancy, but after I gave birth to her. And it just felt like such a beautiful moment. And so that was why her name is now Mika Swan. I'm still so happy about this story. Even just telling it now, half a year later, still brings tears into my eyes. That's Mika Swan's birth story. She is such a gorgeous little girl. She's so happy and smiley and fun and loving and confident and relaxed from day one. She was just, you know, like sometimes I would just have her on the bed and she would just look at the ceiling, and we've got a wooden ceiling with the pattern of the wood, and I've got a guitar hanging up on the side, and she would just stare at things, very observing. She's amazing, and I am just so grateful that I trusted her. Well, that I trusted myself and my body, but also that I trusted her. And that I just trusted in this natural process, this wild and free and beautiful process of pregnancy and birth, and it worked out amazingly. And yes, you can even give birth in a van. Initially, I wanted to be in a beautiful house surrounded by green, trees, and ideally have a water birth. And it just didn't turn out that way, but it was amazing. It was perfect the way it was. I gave birth in our home, where I conceived her, and where I was pregnant, and the energy of this van is amazing for it, because of it. And I am really, really, truly grateful for the pregnancy and the birth, for the experience that I was able to have. And even though I know that this is not for everyone, I truly highly recommend it to anyone who has the slightest interest in this and the slightest inkling that this might be for them. Have a look into it. Honestly, I can really recommend it. As I said last time, I highly recommend the Freebirth Society. I will link down below to the course, to the affirmations. Also, there's already radical birth keepers, and they are basically birth professionals that are working with women who want a free birth. They have been, just this year, trained by Emily and Yolanda from the Freebirth Society, and I'm sure there's women all over the world. I believe there's 30 women now at this point of me putting this video up live. They're starting a new round in October, so if you're interested in actually becoming a radical birth keeper, then click the link down below. I'll link that as well. Yes, there's all sorts of amazingness going on in the world, despite everything that does not seem so amazing right now. Birth is certainly going into a very beautiful direction again. You might actually find someone who lives close to you or closer to you, who can help you if you feel like you want someone there. If you want someone there for you, birthing freely without a midwife or a doctor or nurse or a doula, who are all part of the system, have a look on the website and see if you can find someone who lives close to you, who can be there for you and your baby.